And welcome to our 5th edition of the webinar series as a part of the Gold Coast Elite Sports Conference. My name is Peter Munt and I'm a partner at RDK Sports Management, and it's great to see so many of you tuning into the webinar today. For those who aren't aware, or it is your first time tuning in, the original Gold Coast Elite Sports Conference was meant to take place in May, but unfortunately due to COVID-19, we had to turn our one-day conference into a series of webinars across the year. However, this has come with significant value for everyone involved, as we have been able to connect people from across the globe. Our past webinars have taken place with Matt Doyle from Stanford University, Alicia Krutner from Sierra Canyon Basketball Program, Pero Cameron, the New Zealand Tall Blacks head coach and FIBA Hall of Fame member, and the last session we presented David Hale, Cara Conan and Harriet Brown, who gave us an insight into the sporting world during these COVID times. Each session has been hugely popular, and today we are lucky enough to be joined by one of the best in the sports marketing industry, Pete Locke from the Brisbane Heat. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Lily, who will introduce Pete and get the session started.
Thanks, Peter. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to sit down and chat with you, Pete, the Brisbane Heat Marketing and Commercial Manager. My name is Lily Gray. I'm not a Peter, unfortunately, and I am the Marketing, Partnerships and Communications Coordinator for RDK Sports, as well as an avid sports fan and digital marketing enthusiast. So welcome, Pete. It's great to have you on. I thought we would kick things off by getting you to tell us a little bit about your role within the Heat and how you came about being in the position.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me on, and thanks for the kind words, Peter. I appreciate that very much. I've been at Queensland Cricket and the Brisbane Heat for about 7 years now, so approaching my 8th summer here. Started back 7 years ago in a social media and digital marketing role, so that's kind of my background is digital advertising marketing. Since then have grown a massive passion for writing and creative writing, so stepped into a comms role a couple of years back where I was public affairs manager, really taking hands-on role around press releases, media management, PR is really important for us, obviously trying to attract new audiences to cricket. And then most recently, I've taken up the role of commercial and marketing manager with Queensland Cricket and the Brisbane Heat. So overseeing our commercial marketing team, trying to find innovative ways to bring new fans into the game, new revenue streams, connect with sponsors, all those things, while trying to market what we consider to be a really premium brand in the Brisbane Heat.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you've been across pretty much every area of the Brisbane Heat, which is awesome. For me in particular, the Heat have really stood out in terms of their marketing and digital presence on social media. In May this year, I've seen a little picture on social media pop up that the Brisbane Heat were actually the most popular sports team on Facebook in the Oceania region, which put them alongside Liverpool Football Club and the LA Lakers, which is incredible, especially for a sport that only runs in the summer part of the year. So Pete, jumping into this, after seeing so many years of this growth and success and engagement, what would you think the key to success for the Brisbane Heat is in terms of your marketing strategy?
Yeah, sure. When we reflect on the Brisbane Heat's marketing strategy and brand and purpose, we probably look back to why the Big Bash League was created. We're going into our 10th season, so 10 years ago, why was the Big Bash League created as a new league? And that was to solve a problem that kids weren't playing cricket as much as they used to, and cricket wasn't engaging with new audiences. So this competition was created with the sole purpose to make cricket cool, to promote ourselves to kids, to families, and to get more people involved with the game. So create a new product for people that might not be interested in test cricket or one-day cricket, those longer forms, which was really only the Australian team. You had state-based competitions as well, but there was nothing in that in-between gap. So for the Brisbane Heat, we have never shied away from our pure purpose and values, which is to bring families together. So we consider ourselves to be an entertainment company and brand as opposed to a cricket club. So everything that we do from a marketing sense, from a social media sense, when we speak to sponsors, when we speak to stakeholders out in the media, we are living out our values, which is to bring families together. So really looking at marketing and entertainment, which is targeted towards families, and that could be mums and dads bringing their kids along to a game.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of companies would align with similar values, and families are such a big market, especially when kids are able to be a bit more persuasive to their parents saying, come on, let's go to the cricket. So I guess creating a market for that is really incredible. So I guess off the back of that, what content do you think is the most engaging and successful on the Heats platform, given that family and entertainment is your sole purpose?
Yeah, I think because we've got a bit of a mix, a good mix of, say, your hardcore sports fans that want to see things like Chris Lynn smashing a six out of the Gabba. So anytime we put a highlights packet up like that of AB de Villiers or Chris Lynn or Mitchell Swepson or some of our female players like Jess Jonathan or Delissa Kimmins, it just goes really well. Hitting sixes, taking catches, doing all those really cool things that are great to see on a cricket field. That really gets great engagement and response from our fans. But then I guess because we've got that really good mix of family audiences, when we post something like this year, after the Big Bash, we posted a kiss cam video from one of our games, and surprisingly, that just went completely gangbusters. Over 1 million kind of views within 24-hour period, something crazy like that. So I guess it's not a one-size-fits-all approach for us. We know that we've got a really wide-ranging audience that might like different things. So yeah, we do things like player profiles, works really well, engages with our audience. So yeah, definitely not one piece of content that works best, just a range of which we work into our content strategy.
Absolutely. And I guess off the back of that, you'd probably face a similar challenge in having enough content for the whole year round. Obviously, BBL and WBBL are only a short time of the year. How do you sort of space everything out and keep your audience engaged over the winter months when potentially they're watching AFL or rugby or netball?
Yeah, sure. We certainly pitch ourselves and promote ourselves as a 12-month of the year entertainment brand. So during the summer months, we're really engaged with what's happening on the field, also off the field, how we're bringing fans into the stadiums. During the off season, we're working on things like player signings. How can we be really creative with announcing a new player? If we've got a new commercial partner on board, how are we announcing that in a really fun, creative way? We work really closely with all of our sponsors to create things like integrated content. We're really lucky that we've got a talented in-house content team that work across those kind of things. So we map this out over the course of the year, really focusing our attention during the summer months on highlights and getting people to games. But outside those months, yeah, how are we continuing to drive eyeballs to our platforms? And that's through things like, yeah, creative player announcements, integrated content, those kind of fun things.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fantastic. And I've seen quite a bit that Brisbane Heat do have quite a large international presence, particularly in India, as they're massive cricket fans. Do you find that the trends in marketing and social media differ from country to country, say from Australia to India? And if so, how do you sort of navigate these different trends, and are platforms more popular in one country than the other? I'd love to get your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, well, cricket's certainly a global game, and we have players like Chris Lynn. In the past, we've had AB de Villiers, Brendan McCullum, Dan Vittori. These are people with massive profiles, particularly in the subcontinent. So I guess trends would tell us that when we focus our attention on doing big player stories about these players or promoting their highlights, then they do go really well in the subcontinent. So we don't necessarily have different strategies for different parts of the world. I think something that we want to look at is we're a global brand. How do we commercialize ourselves globally? So looking at the Indian markets, how are we pitching sponsorship or making money out of what we consider to be a growing audience out of the subcontinent? So yeah, not a different strategy, but I think in the long run, we'd like to develop commercial strategies for different parts of the world.
Absolutely. And I guess off the back of that, do you have any international sponsors that are based in India?
No, we don't. So it's been a topic of conversation and been relatively new to my role. I think it's something that we'll look to drive in the next kind of 12 months or so with a long-term objective.
Absolutely. That would be a really interesting space to watch. Back on social media, how important are the platforms for Brisbane Heat and Queensland Crickets in terms of memberships and driving those numbers?
Yeah, I think growing our social audience means that we've got a direct link into fans. So we'll always look to try and grow and engage with our audience so that when it comes time to selling memberships or selling tickets, then we know we've got an engaged audience already looking at us. We don't necessarily promote our memberships on sale or tickets on sale and expect to get a really big take up from a direct Facebook post or something like that. We would run targeted Facebook ads or Instagram ads. So we've got a strategy around promoting via social media, which is paid social. Mm-hmm. What we probably find social media so useful for in the fan and member space is as a communication tool. So we know that our fans and members, if they want to get hold of us, they might send us a message via Instagram, or they might send us a Facebook direct message. So for us, it's about being really responsive to when our members and fans are trying to find key information. So providing a really good level of customer service via social media is really important, not necessarily as a direct sales channel, but more as a communication channel, I find.
Absolutely. And I reckon a lot of sporting organisations or other businesses would completely forget that. They think, all right, I've got this awesome content, let's just push it out there, set it, forget it, and that's all we need to do. But I think what you've said in being responsive and engaging with your audience is probably what sets you apart, which is really cool. I guess off the back of that, I probably don't want to take all of these secrets, but you did mention paid social. How do you guys target and retarget? Obviously, you don't have to spill all the secrets, but we'd love to know some of the methods.
Yeah, I think when we do a marketing campaign, when we're looking at memberships or tickets, then I guess we look at a multi-channel approach. So we do things like advertising on TV in a normal summer, on billboards, on radio. We engage with media partners, but we try to be quite savvy with how we use digital. So we do email marketing, come up with campaigns around retargeting from people who come to our website, making sure that we're sending them ads when they go to social media, those kind of things. So probably not doing anything that's really innovative and that other companies aren't doing, but just trying to do it really well and use our resource and our money for marketing in an effective way. So not necessarily anything that's completely out of the box that people haven't heard of, but just being really tactical. So yeah, social media ads on Facebook, Instagram, those kind of things. They're probably our main channels for social, Google search. Yeah, all the different direct channels. When we go hard, we'd like to turn all those taps on and making sure that we're hitting all our fans and customers with every channel that we've got.
Absolutely. And I guess off the back of that, is there a particular time of year that you do like to go hard in that field, or is it a pretty consistent spread across the season or year?
Yeah, it depends what time of year it is. So normally in a normal world, right now in August, we'd be on sale with our memberships. So we'd be try and drive new fans to become members who previously hadn't. So working really hard to convert them mainly via digital channels. So we wouldn't necessarily be doing a lot of TV advertising right now, but come October, November, when we are trying to get people to games, when tickets are on sale, that's when we really hit hard with our traditional advertising. And we do things like events where we try and bring fans in and then convert them into fans. Once they're a fan, can we convert them to become a member? So yeah, it's probably an all year round thing, but certainly in the latter part of the year leading into our summer period when we're trying to sell Big Bash League tickets is when we go really hard with advertising.
Awesome. I've got a question here from Ken Lee. He's from Oztech VR. They do augmented reality and virtual reality. He said, we're talking to a footy club about using web-based augmented reality to engage fans and visitors to the game next season. I know the Heat has used VR a little bit in the past. Is web AR something you have been exploring to increase engagement, promote player signings and promote sponsors?
Not so much web AR. So we launched a couple of years ago a VR and AR experience via a mobile app and a VR game. So I think things will pivot for us in that space, in that events as we traditionally know them, community events, particularly this summer, aren't going to look the same. So for anyone that doesn't know, when you do a VR experience, it requires you to put on a headset, hold a bat, those kind of things. And for hygiene issues, I don't see that becoming a big part of our strategy this year for obvious reasons. But certainly mobile-based AR will become a big part of our strategy, probably pivoting a lot of the things that we did in VR and moving that to the AR space, trying to come up with cool concepts around mobile, how we can drive people to download the app, engage with cool content. We do have sponsors attached to it. So how are we getting sponsor messaging out, creating new videos? So for anyone that hasn't checked it out, I'd suggest you download our app. I'll give a quick plug. Heat Interactive, it's what it's called. And you'll be able to find some cool augmented reality experiences via the app.
Yeah, awesome. That sounds great. I know, and
I'm keen to
especially
hear more about web-based AR, Kenley, so feel free to hit me up.
awesome. That's good to hear. And I guess, augmented reality is going to continue to grow, and I guess that awareness is growing tremendously right now because everyone, if they enter venues, have to scan the QR code, and it's going to be great to see that industry grow now that we're a bit more comfortable with it. So I've got one from Ryan here. He said, what would be your best tips for acquiring new partners from a business development perspective, given the current climate, and what tools have you found most successful in the past? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's a pretty tough economic climate out there, I think, as everyone knows. There's a lot of uncertainty about what the next 12 months look like. So I guess for us, it's not necessarily going out and banging on doors and saying, come and sponsor us right now. I think any sales process tells you it's about developing relationships, looking at the long-term offering of what things can look like. For us, we're really confident of producing a lot of games this summer. So all of our conversations around, we're trying to drive eyeballs to the Heat, and that could be by having a really great broadcast product, or we're going to go really hard in amplifying our digital channels. So knowing that crowds and venues could be difficult for, say, the short term, we're really hopeful that we can host games in Brisbane and have close to full crowds, perhaps. But knowing that our fans are engaged on their phones right now, so everything we do needs to have a really good digital lens. So when we're talking to partners, it's very much, we're continuing to grow our social media audience. Everything we do is going to have a really strong digital focus. So that's probably a key, is really amplifying digital and knowing where your audience is going to be, and that you're going to be able to drive eyeballs no matter what.
Absolutely. And I guess for sponsors, it's really important to know that your audience is an audience that they might also be targeting. And so off the back of that, we've had another question come through. Do you use any particular platforms to report on your social media engagement, or maybe analyze who these people are?
Yeah, we do use a couple. I find that the analytics tools within things like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter aren't too bad, but we use platforms like ClipDesk, which provide good insights around analysing values for media. For traditional media, we use Essentia, which is a tool that evaluates media coverage. So yeah, I think ClipDesk is the most recent one, which I definitely recommend. We find good value out of it, in that it does provide things like exposure for sponsors. That's really important for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got one from Manish here as well. He said, what type of monetization methods do you use during off-season time, if any? and what changes has the organisation taken as a result of the pandemic?
Yeah, I'll probably answer the second part first in terms of changes. I think the buzzword of 2020 is the word pivot. So we've certainly pivoted a lot of our thinking from, say, not thinking traditionally and going on sale with the ticketing campaign in, say, October and memberships in right now. Things are obviously very different. So our mindset being that we're not sure exactly how many people we can get to games. So how are we positioning ourselves to sell things like a supporter membership? So really encouraging people to support us in a digital format, knowing that they might not be able to attend games. But for our members that we know have engaged with us for several years, creating that little bit of scarcity around the product. So I guess we want to be able to encourage people, once they've signed up as a member, they'll get first access to tickets. So really rewarding the people that have been close to us for several years. And as an example, we're going into our 10th season as a club, and just recently we got every member that had been with us since year one. So there was a whole handful, invited them to do a Q&A with our coach, Darren Lehman. So I guess trying to change your thinking that traditional ways of doing things are going to be completely different. And we want to still provide great experiences for fans. So how can we do that digitally? Like a method that we're doing right now, providing an experience where a fan can talk directly to a coach. Those kind of experiences are pretty cool if you put yourself in the fans' shoes. So we're probably looking at those kind of things. And I forgot the first part of the question, sorry.
They said, what type of monetization methods do you use during off-season time, if any?
Yeah, I think it's really focusing our energy in the off season around evaluating where we're at from, say, a sponsorship perspective, what assets we've got to sell in terms of logos on jerseys, all those kind of things, and just carving out what we're going to do around things like digital media, how we're going to use digital to grow our fan base. So not necessarily direct selling in those off-season months, but planning for when the time is right, we're ready to strike.
Absolutely. We've got a lot streaming through, so that's really good to see. Keep them coming, everyone. We've got one from Jesse. He says, I'm a business uni student. Given the Heat success in marketing and your part in it, what is your advice for aspiring business employees? And especially, I guess, given the market where it may be harder for people to find jobs in the future.
Yeah, sure. I think sports is a pretty tough industry to crack. I think I certainly found it difficult to get my foot in the door. I think that's the hardest part, is certainly getting your foot in the door. But you hear this everywhere, but the more experience you can get and the more people you can meet is just really crucial for when those opportunities do arise. So certainly networking where you can, doing things like internships, reaching out to clubs and organisations and sporting bodies, finding out what opportunities exist from a learning level, could be a volunteer level, an internship level, putting yourself forward. And then once the opportunity does arrive to get your foot in the door, you're well equipped to put your best foot forward, so to speak, because you've got that experience working with companies, even if it's at a short-term level. At least you know the people, you've got the experience. So really learning as much as you can outside of uni, making contacts and networking. But it is a tough nut to crack getting into sport, I will admit that.
Absolutely. I'm going to jump back into what would probably be the elephant in the room or the year, which is COVID. So I guess for the Heat, you haven't had to have those same challenges as, say, AFL, netball, rugby, where you've had to completely flip your season just yet. Hopefully you don't have to. But what have you been doing to prepare for this? You probably touched on it a little bit earlier, but in terms of, your marketing commercial department as well as your logistics, what have you been doing to prepare for this?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt we're all working in a very challenging and uncertain environment. We are lucky, I suppose, that when things kicked off in March, it was at the tail end of the cricket season. The Big Bash had been completed, so we were really lucky in that regard. Obviously, the footy codes had to pause and restart. So From an economic and financial point of view, cricket hasn't been immune to the challenges, and I think a lot of clubs and associations have had to make cuts, and that's been really unfortunate. But I suppose from a planning level, we've got a bit of a motto in our office, which is control the controllable. So just trying to do what we can and do it really well. And when we're in a position that we need to make decisions, where we can make decisions and make them really informed, and trying not to put people under undue stress, I think is really important at the moment, because it is a challenging environment and things are changing day to day. So yeah, just trying to plan as much as we can, knowing that things might change. If they do change, how do we react? Trying to think with a really calm head. I think that's the most crucial thing we can do. And just communicating really well. I think communication during a time like this is just so crucial. We're lucky that we're back in our office, and hopefully it stays that way. But in the initial period of lockdown, making sure we're on Teams calls or Zoom calls every day, working out what people are doing, how we can help each other, supporting. I think that's just really a crucial thing for not just our business, but just society in general. Just keep communicating.
Absolutely. And I guess you mentioned before that it's been really great that you were able to reward some of your longer term members by giving them an insight into the coach's brain. In terms of sponsors that have been with you for a while or have just joined, how are you coping with going through COVID-19 with these organisations? Is there anything that you're doing to help these businesses that may be struggling through COVID-19?
Yeah, I think I mentioned communication before. I think particularly for our commercial partners and sponsors and all stakeholders, just being really much on the front foot with communicating updates and those kind of things. So understanding the challenges that their businesses might be going through and how we as a club can help. So very early on, we developed a bit of a content strategy, which was focused purely around things like highlights and reflections on previous seasons, stuff that we know our fans will respond really well to, but then attaching a sponsor to it so that they were getting some good coverage, which might not normally happen in, say, the months of April and May. And when you kicked things off and said that we had the most engagement out of any sports club in May, that was purely because we had a content strategy that was based around around highlights. And we were fortunate that we could attach sponsors to those highlights. So we were providing good coverage in those early months of lockdown, when we knew people were looking at their phones, on their computers all day. So that's kind of been really crucial. And as we plan for the summer and knowing that there's challenges still ahead, it's really crucial for us to just be communicating really well, let them understand, all of our stakeholders, what's going to be happening, what might happen. I think just being on the front foot's so crucial right now.
Absolutely.
And just building that trust, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And just open communication. I guess everyone knows that this isn't a normal time, and just being open with each other, which I'm sure you guys are doing such a great job of. Now, more of the player and social media side again with COVID. We've had one come in saying, how do you see balancing the brand of individual players versus the overall Heat brand in the post-COVID environment versus pre-COVID? I guess that's a really relevant one at the moment. We've seen lots of sporting organisations do, Instagram takeovers and inside the life of someone in lockdown. Do you think that this trend of getting to know the player will continue on post-COVID?
Yeah, I think the trend was already there pre-COVID. I think we work with our players really closely because we know that showcasing their personalities brings fans into the game. So it's obviously good for them to have great personalities, and the more we can do to bring that out, be that via interviews with media, on social media, game day, then we're always encouraging them to be themselves, and we'll help every step of the way to try and do that. I don't know who on the call has watched the Amazon documentary about the Australian men's team, and being a big cricket fan, obviously I watched that and I knew a few of the players, but some I didn't know, and just was amazed with the quality of that inner sanctum access, and went from that into The Last Dance, and this really cool storytelling that is just long form, but fans love it. So I think that inner sanctum style documentary will actually become a really big thing in sports marketing and sports media moving forward. I think the tests in The Last Dance have showed that there's such a big appetite to see what happens behind the scenes, and the challenge will be to how you can keep doing that in a really authentic way. So yeah, it'll just keep coming. We'll want to see what's happening with players, what they eat for breakfast, what they're doing at lunchtime, what are they wearing out to dinner. I think it's just cool insights.
Absolutely. And I think maybe we'll have to watch this space, because it seems like you're pretty keen on doing something like that with the Heat. Am I right? Or
Oh, I'd love to. One of the challenges, to be honest, that we'll find in this COVID environment is getting too close to players right now is quite difficult. So we've seen with the football codes, they're in a pretty protected bubble. So I don't think they're letting cameras from the outside world into film team huddles and those kind of things, into those really inner sanctum experiences just yet. But yeah, I guess you can say watch this space, because I'm certainly keen to do something cool like that.
Absolutely. We've had one in from Aidan that follows on from the past question. How do you manage off-season connection with players, considering some of them may be on the other side of the world playing in a different league? This is probably pretty niche to cricket, and I guess basketball, in that fact where you'd play multiple leagues a year. How do you manage that connection on social media?
Yeah, it's probably a couple of different layers to that. So when our players go on tours for several months, we might not see them for that whole time. And when players are here, we kind of have them at events. They're doing appearances out in the community. They're doing interviews with local media. And when they're not here, they can't obviously do those things. So when they're away, we tend to let them be and let them perform during those tournaments. But certainly we like to follow their success. And when they're doing well, we'll promote it. So Chris Lynn's over in the Caribbean right now. If he hits a century in a game tomorrow, then yeah, you can be sure that we'll post that on our social media channels. So we follow their performances really well. We encourage them. We want them to do well. So yeah, certainly we'll follow them on their journey and promote when they perform.
Absolutely. And I guess we're heading down the stream of sort of talking about athletes and their personal brands. But before we jump into that, we've got one from Ian, and he said, do you measure the number of live attendances per season per club member? So I guess how many games one member attends a season?
Yeah, so we've got a few different membership products. One which would be a full season, where a member might want to do that because they get the best seat in the house next to the dugout. They know that they can get that every year. And for us, that member is so important because we know that they just love coming to every game. They might buy a jersey. They want to get that jersey signed. They'll buy a hat. They'll bring their mates, all those kind of things. So we certainly will always try and measure and promote to someone to attend every match. And then we offer different products like a 2-game membership, which in previous seasons has been successful. Because the Big Bash is played over the summer holiday period, we know that sometimes fans can't get to every game, so they might want to go to one in December, one in middle of January. So yeah, it's probably having a bit of a variety for our members. So they still want to connect with the club and be part of the inner sanctum, but can't attend every game. So yeah, we certainly do measure how many games members would like to attend and try and tailor packages accordingly.
Yeah, that's great. And I didn't know that you were able to sort of track how many games people attend, but give them the best seat in the house if they're at every game. Because I guess you don't want to have the best seat in the house empty because, you know, they're the ones cheering them on right as they walk out. So that's really cool that you guys do that. So I guess moving on to sort of some questions about athlete personal branding. We've got one that says, what would be your advice to athletes or for a business who are trying to grow their brand?
Well, I mean, for athletes, I don't think you need to be an expert at social media. You don't need to go in and think this post needs to get full engagement on Instagram or it's not successful. The key for an athlete on social media is to be authentic, be yourself. Don't think you need to do every channel out there. You don't need to be an expert at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If your personality is not to do goofy videos, then don't create a TikTok account. If that is your personality, then that's funny. Create a TikTok account because people will engage with it. So it's really important to be yourself, not to try and be something that you're not. if you're authentic, then people will engage with you. Obviously, if you perform on the field, it gives you scope to grow your audience and more people will want to follow you. So I think first and foremost, concentrate on field, look at the off field. For us as social media people that work with athletes, we want to know if they're interested in social media. So I'd certainly recommend to anyone that's working, an athlete that's at a club or something like that, get to know your social media manager, because I know that I loved it when athletes and players would come up to me and say, I'm keen to post a cool video on Instagram or a good image. I'm like, great, that's good for me because that helps promote what we're trying to do. So get to know your social media managers. They're the experts. They'll definitely help you, I would hope.
Absolutely. Have you found in the past that if a high-profile player such as Chris Lynn or AB de Villiers post something about the heat on their social media platforms, that your account as a result gets a big hit rate from that?
Not necessarily a big hit rate, but I guess when we're looking at a campaign around a player's announcement or a signing and it's someone new, or even if it's an existing player, then we'll certainly encourage them to post on their social channels. So we'll look at their posts and know that they've had really good engagement, they had a lot of likes. So not necessarily a big impact for us, but we like to tie it into what we're doing for everything. So we'll always encourage players to engage with us on social media, because we know the fans are watching, we know that they engage with their content, and it's really good for us.
Absolutely. And I guess you mentioned TikTok before. I'm not on the platform myself, but have the Brisbane Heat gone onto TikTok yet? And is that going to be a massive move going forward?
Yeah, I think we'd like to think of ourselves as pretty early adopters with things like that. So last year when TikTok took off, I think we were the first professional cricket team in the world to maybe become verified or something like that. Our stats told us early in the year we were up there in the top 3 sporting clubs in Australia with TikTok views and engagement. So I think you look at all the different audiences and the capabilities of each platform, and TikTok was just great for that younger, kind of, I think it's 13 to 18 to 21 or something like that. And the purpose of it was just to have fun. And the Brisbane Heat is a fun brand. I mean, if we put videos up of our mascot doing goofy dances or players doing goofy dances and they've got a smile on their face, then more often than not, the fan's going to have a smile on their face too. So yeah, certainly I found TikTok to be a good avenue for us. Social media is a little bit fickle, so whether or not it becomes the big hit social platform that it is forever, I'm not too sure, but while it's hot, we'll certainly engage with it.
Absolutely. It does really go hand in hand with who you love to have as members, and that's families. I know kids these days, I just see them walking down the streets and they're doing all the new TikTok dances. So it's a pretty awesome space to be in.
I might just add that I personally have never done a goofy TikTok dance.
We might have to get you to change that. Maybe you can post it on your LinkedIn or something.
Maybe.
So I guess kind of off the back of that, what role do you think an athlete's personal brand plays in the team's marketing success? And obviously, like I see Chris Lynn features heavily on the Heat's Instagram, and I guess how do you use that to boost your own profile, but also help your sponsors and partners use your digital presence to reach an audience?
Yeah, sure. I think as I mentioned before, we want to showcase the personalities of our players because we know that our fans want to get to know the players. So the more that we can let our players get to know the likes of Chris Lynn or Jess Jonathan, then certainly it just creates an easier tie into our fans and helps us engage with them because we know that they've got a personal relationship in that they're a big fan of that player. They like their personality. They like the way they play. And so for us, it just makes sense to put that player on a poster or put it on a billboard or put them in one of our social media campaigns because the fans will engage with it. So yeah, certainly it's really important for us to keep showcasing the personalities of our players because we know that it does have commercial outcomes for us.
Absolutely. So, and I guess off the back of that, when you do start to align some of your athletes with partners and sponsors of the Brisbane Heat, how do you help them form a natural relationship with the brand? Because obviously it's all well and good aligning a brand and athlete together, but if it's a bit forced, it might not pay off. So I guess, how do you make that relationship seem as natural as possible?
Yeah, sure. I think, as I mentioned before, we've got a pretty, our content team in-house is really talented, and our strategy is very much that we can create content for, say, commercial partners, which integrates branding and logos that we know will resonate with our audience. So we're not posting a direct ad for one of our sponsors on Facebook because we know that that's not what they want to see, but they will want to see that player doing a video that features that sponsor in an indirect kind of way. So creating that integrated content that becomes really engaging. So not creating an ad that's right in your face with a sales outcome, something like that. Yeah, quite overt branding, tying the sponsor into a content series that we know is going to resonate with our audience.
Absolutely. So we're having lots of questions come in. We'll probably start to wrap it up in about 15 minutes, but we'll tick off some ones that are coming through. So if you've got any last questions, send them through and we'll answer them now. We've got one from a bit earlier on that says, do you find that the Big Bash fans are loyal to the club or to a player? And how do you manage these trends? I mean, even if the team was losing, how do you keep them loyal to the Brisbane Heat?
Yeah, sure. It's actually a really big challenge because we are a club that's only been around for 9 years. So we don't have the longevity and the traditionalism and the fandom of, say, the Collingwood football team or the Brisbane Broncos, who have got generational fans. And someone might be a fan of Carlton because their grandma or their grandpa was a fan. So we've got a challenge in that we're really fresh and we're really young as a team, and we're trying to build fandom from the ground up. So yeah, I guess every year we try and engage more people that we can and convert those fans to become, say, casual fans into members. So the challenge that we're trying to build is fandom and continually to grow the Brisbane Heat.
Absolutely. And I guess off that, are there any parts of your merchandise or anything in particular that helps drive that fandom? Like, what have you found drives that relationship as much as possible?
Oh, I guess it's a bit of an open question in that driving fandom is such a big challenge and probably something that we're trying to do every day, because we're trying to take a fan that's watched us on TV to get them to convert to buy a jersey, come to a game the following year. Hopefully we've given them a great experience and they've come to this match and they've seen fireworks and mascots and they've taken their family along, and then next year they think, I'm definitely going to attend the Heat, even if the team hasn't performed well on the field. So there's not necessarily any trends that we're seeing that help drive that. It's probably all of the above. Creating a really good match day experience is really key for us. So as I mentioned before, it's more than a game of cricket for us. It's everything involved. We like to create energy and atmosphere. So even if we, say, don't perform on the field, ideally we do, the fan leaves with a big smile on their face because they've just had a great night out with their family.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the incredible team that you have in the creative department. We've got one come in that says, a more organisational question, how would you describe the Heat's organisational culture? And then how does that culture then influence your level of entrepreneurship and creative license as a marketer?
Yeah, I think we're obviously a very collaborative team, and if I think of how we work together, we communicate really well. I think that's really crucial, but no idea is a silly idea in our office, and everyone has as loud a voice as the next person. So I'd like to think that if someone's got a good idea or something to say, then they should have as much right to say that and pitch that idea to our group as the next person. So we like to think of ourselves as innovators, creative thinkers, and that culture is just kind of built that we've got a really good creative group, a really collaborative group, and we work really well together.
Awesome. Sounds like a great team to be a part of. We've got one more here. Are most of the fans from Brisbane itself, or do you think the fan base is spread throughout Australia?
Yeah, so certainly we're a Queensland team, and we like to think that our fans are spread across Queensland, across Australia, and across the world. So in a traditional Big Bash season, we play about 5 games in our men's team in Brisbane. We play a couple on the Gold Coast. Our women's team, which has become a massive part of our brand and our club, they normally play games up in Mackay. We found Mackay's been a really good region for us for things like female cricket participation, just completely booming, a really engaged community. In previous years, we've played in Cairns. So we like to spread our range of games from our men's and women's teams in locations and cities right across Queensland. Certainly from a social media perspective, we've got fans in every corner of Australia, focused on the southeast corner because we are the Brisbane Heat. But internationally too, we do have fans that engage with us we've had Andrew Flintoff play with us before, an English superstar. So we had a fan base grow in England. We've got Tom Benton play for us, who is based out of England. We had AB de Villiers last summer from South Africa. So naturally you do pick up fans in different parts of the world. But certainly our intention as a marketing unit is to engage our Queensland market, get people to come to games, and get people to become members.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to see that you guys are engaging the regional Queensland towns, as probably in the past they've missed out a little bit. So it's going to be really exciting to see sport move further north. So it's a great place to be up there.
Yeah, I probably will add to that we sit under the banner of Queensland Cricket, who are not for profit, and every bit of commercial revenue that comes into Queensland Cricket via the Brisbane Heat gets reinvested into the community. So our job as marketers is to create new fans, but also to drive participation. We want to see young kids playing the game. So the Big Bash is a perfect format for that because it's appealing to kids. They want to go out and smash sixes like Linney and Baz and those kind of players.
Absolutely. And I guess, as is most sports, it's about going from the ground up. And it's really great to see walk around, you walk around Brisbane City and you see all the blue hats on. So it's definitely booming, and it's really exciting to see. We've got no more questions left and we're almost out of time. So I think we might wrap it up there. So thank you so much, Pete. It was an absolute pleasure sitting down and chatting with you. And I'm sure everyone who tuned in thought it was just as insightful as I did. So thank you.
No worries. Thanks very much, Lily. And I'm happy for anyone to reach out to me as well if you want to have a post webinar conversation. My email is pete.lock@qldcricket.com.au. Happy for you to drop me a line. But yeah, appreciate the opportunity, Lily.
Perfect. No worries. So just on behalf of the Gold Coast Elite Sports Conference and RDK Sports, we are also really excited to announce that in late October, we will be holding a fully online virtual summit. So over 3 days, we'll be hosting 12 sessions with world-class speakers from around the globe. So this online conference will mimic the real thing. You'll be sitting in a virtual auditorium and in a networking lounge where you'll be able to network with people around the globe. Tickets will be released next week, so keep an eye out on your social media and in your inboxes for more information. And again, thank you, Pete, for coming online and talking to us, and for everyone tuning in. Have a great night.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.